Tennessee has 3 spring position battles that can make or break the season coming up this fall. Which ones are they? I'll tell you all that and more. It's your Tuesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. This is Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane. Appreciate you for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen every single day. Shout out every dayers for making this show what it is. Really do appreciate you guys, as always. And a big shout out to Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things just a little further? Ever wonder what that adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. Got a busy show coming up today. Want to thank you for being here, listening, watching, subscribing, downloading, all that for free wherever you get your podcast. Spring practice position battles, 3 that can make or break the 2024 campaign. That's coming up right now. Award season for Tennessee hoops, and boy, Tennessee reeled in a ton in segment 2, and your mailbag questions coming up in segment number 3. So, spring practice, it is a crucial time. You know, anytime you get reps, it's important, okay? So I don't want to just be dismissive and saying, well, this spring practice isn't that big for Cooper Mays or, Keenan Peely or some of these veterans that you really want to wrap in bubble wrap and just make sure that they're okay for fall camp and the season. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's true. Every rep is critical that you can get on the football field. But the spring practice, for certain players in certain positions, are going to mean a little bit more. Like the SEC, it just means more, right? What are those spring position battles that could set the tone for a heated competition in fall camp and ultimately play a big role in Tennessee's success in 2024? I truly believe that if Tennessee kind of fails at these positions I'm about to name right now, then you're not going to reach your goals as a team in 2024. Nico's not going to be as protected or be as efficient, or defensively you're not going to get to the quarterback enough or obviously keep points off the board. So 3 big-time questions that I have about this spring at certain positions that you don't necessarily need a starter out of spring practice, but ultimately you need to know who can help you out and who you can count on moving forward into fall camp and into the fall. Over at VolQuest.com, Brent Hubbs is putting out a story kind of previewing spring practice, heading into the start of spring practice on Monday of next week. I don't know. I believe he's doing one on position battles, and I don't know which ones he will have, but ultimately Brent and I usually think a lot of the same in terms of this stuff. But here are mine, and let me know what you think. Obviously, left guard is probably the top position battle in my opinion. That or or safety, which I'll get to here in a moment. But left guard, obviously you have an investment, you have the face of a franchise, and you have the most important position in all the sports, and that's quarterback, and that's Nico Iamaleava. You've got to keep him upright. You got to keep him fresh and clean and healthy so he can go do what he does at a high level that we believe in order for Tennessee to go win games. There's other positions on the offensive line. There's center, there's a right guard, there's 2 tackles. And we have a pretty good idea, barring injury, where Tennessee stands at all those positions, right? I mean, John Campbell at right tackle, you got Javonte Spraggins at right guard, Cooper Mays at center, and then Lance Hurd at left tackle. But truly, we have no clue about left guard right now. Here are some names who are going to be contending for that left guard spot. The guy that started a couple of games there at the beginning of the season is Texas transfer Andre Carrick. He did okay. He wasn't horrible. But he dealt with some injuries that kept him out pretty much the rest of the way. He only played in a couple of games. And so at the end of the day, he was kind of a non-factor, honestly, in Andre Carrick. Can round 2, can your number 2 be different for Andre Carrick? And can he enhance his game a little bit? I mean, there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. When he was in there, he's one of the weaker links for Tennessee's offensive line last year. Can he get better? How does he view this competition? Does it make him better? Iron sharpens iron. You hope that's the case here with Andre Carrick, who has a big fan in position coach Glenn Ellerby, and I think that's something, obviously. You want your position coach to be a big fan of you because he's the one that makes the lineup there. but can he gain the respect and the admiration of the other four on the offensive line? I think he can, but I think this is going to be a huge spring for a guy like Andre Carrick. What about the guy that finished at one of the guard spots last year with Javonte Spraggins out? You had Ollie Lane at the other one. You had Jackson Lampley. This guy's going to be, I believe, a 6-year senior coming back, and he's been a career backup. Of course, his father played here at Tennessee, and Brad Lampley in the 1990s, and he's a Tennessee guy through and through. Jackson Lampley's a guy that I want on my team for sure. Does that mean he's going to be a starter next year? I don't know. He got some early PT whenever Tennessee was kind of rotating offensive linemen back in the Virginia game early in the season. He ended Tennessee's season by playing guard in the Vanderbilt game and the bowl game against Iowa. What can he bring to the table? And can he sustain the daily grind, the weekly grind of an SEC schedule? I don't know. But Jackson Lampley is a guy that's going to be up there and give it his best shot. After that, I mean, you got Dane Davis, who's kind of your swing man, can play both tackles, snap the football a little bit. He's practiced guard as well, friend of the show. He's told us here on Locked On Vols. Dane Davis could get a look, but would that be in the best interest of Tennessee for Dane to be the starting left guard, or for Dane to be kind of the jack of all trades that comes in and still plays a lot of snaps but might play at a number of positions? What about some of these young guys? What about sliding down a guy from the tackle position in Sham Umarov? I don't know. Will that be a possibility? He needs to play tackle for Tennessee in 2025, but could he play guard for Tennessee in 2024 if he's the best ready to go? I don't know. We'll have to see. What about Vyson Lang, who could be your center of the future, but could he be your left guard in 2025? What about some other young guys, Messiah Reddick, Aiden Bustle, who was a true freshman this past season? What about newcomers, Max Anderson, William Satterwhite, maybe Gage Ginther? I don't know. I mean, again, left guard, in my opinion, completely wide open. Let's look at safety. And really, it's the secondary, but let's channel it into safety here, because I think, if Tennessee played a game tomorrow, I think you run Jamal McCoy out, transfer from Oregon State, freshman All-American, and Ricky Gibson, and at least your starters, you feel pretty good. Now, there needs to be competition there. Christian Conyer, Jordan Matthews need to step up, Caleb Beasley, and some others. But let's look at safety. Jalen McCullough, who's played pretty much every single snap the last 7 years for Tennessee, is gone. Wesley Walker's gone. Tamari McDonald, who was a star but can play some safety, he's gone. Trayvon Flowers, he's been gone for a couple of years. Starting over at safety, the guy that ended last year in Andre Turrentine is a guy that I believe can at least have the biggest chance to step in and be a player right away. I thought he was much better than Pro Football Focus gave him credit for in games against Vanderbilt and Georgia and Iowa. We'll see what happens there with Andre Turrentine. Will Brooks, a former walk-on, is also a guy that's seen tons of experience back there at safety. Get a transfer from MTSU and Jacoby Thomas that's been there, done that, but not on this stage, not on this level, but an experienced guy. And we know Tim Banks loves experienced veterans playing safety. So watch Jacoby Thomas, the newcomer from MTSU, to be a guy that's in this race. Also, John Slaughter. Continue to hear great things about John Slaughter as a true freshman last year on special teams. How quickly is he ready to roll and make an impact? And can he play 50 to 60 snaps a game on defense? Because we know those safeties in years past haven't rotated. Hopefully this year, when you're starting over, means you will rotate a little bit. John Slaughter is a guy that I'm watching for because I like his skill set. I like Andre Turrentine, and Jacoby Thomas is going to be in that running as well. Those are kind of the three that I'm looking at. Also, Christian Harrison moving over from cornerback to safety. He's a guy that's going to get some reps. Christian Conyer, could he, or Jordan Matthews, could another one of those corners maybe cross-train? We'll have to see. And then, of course, Christian Charles, who's been banged up more than he's been healthy in his Tennessee career. He's also a safety. And, he's a guy that was going to start. He started a game as a true freshman at safety back in 2021, but he's really not been the same since. So, left guard, safety. Now let's go to the defensive front. And I feel great about the defensive front. I'm not going to spend an awful lot of time on this because it's a rotational position, as we know. They're going to play 10 to 12 guys. But you're losing Tyler Barron, who played that 5 technique, opposite of James Pierce, Roman Harrison, the Leo spot, right? Technically, you're going to have to replace a starter there. And Tennessee's got a lot of guys that can do that, and I believe a lot of guys are going to play in that position. But I think the conversation starts with a guy like Tyree West, who really came into his own in the Citrus Bowl and claimed a national championship, by the way. And, really did a great job. And I think he's a guy that's continued to get better and better as he's bought into the system and he's, enhanced his abilities as a collegiate athlete. Dominic Bailey's a guy that's played a ton. He started a couple of games. He's played the second fiddle to Tyler Barron the last couple of years. Jason Jenkins is a young guy that I think can step up and play not only in the interior, but on the exterior at that position as well. David Hobbs is a guy that can play that spot. The versatility's there. Somebody needs to step up. And maybe a name that I haven't mentioned yet as we kind of hit the break here in a second, Tyree Weathersby. Got hurt in fall camp last year, but he was going to play as a true freshman. Tyree Weathersby is a guy that I really liked his skill set in the class of 2023, I guess, whenever I was covering recruiting, a lot more than I am now. I like him, and I think Rodney Garner likes him, and he's a guy that I think could play a big hand this spring into saying, hey, I'm a guy that can play this strong side defensive end spot. Sign me up for 20 snaps a game. And again, it's not going to be a guy that's going to play 50 snaps a game. It's going to be, 20, 23, 18, 7. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to be split, but that is a spot that you got to put a premier focus on because you are replacing Tyler Barron. So for me, I don't know what yours might be. I don't know. As I mentioned earlier, my boss, Brent Hubbs over at VolQuest, is going to put out something similar to this at some point in time this week. I don't know what his is going to be, but for me, the 3 top position battles in spring that you don't have to have guaranteed ready to roll. Hey, that's my guy right now. I'm ready to play right now, leaving spring practice, but you needed to have some guys that you can count on at those positions. It's safety, it's strong side defensive end or that 5 technique, and of course, left guard. Of course, it's going to be left guard. What are those position battles that you would say are most important for Tennessee football in the spring when spring practice begins coming up in less than a week from now? Would love to hear from you. @_Caner and @Locked On Vols. Hey, when we come back, award season for Tennessee Hoops. Boy, did Dalton Knecht and company bring in that hardware. I'll tell you all about that and more coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things just a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be right around your next corner? Our friends over at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. Let me tell you about the 2024 Nissan Rogue. Is perfect for your city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store are built right into your 12.3-inch HD touchscreen system. The 2024 Rogue is perfect for the midsize crossover for your next adventure. Plus, let me tell you about the Nissan Pathfinder as well, 2024. It's got room to sit up to 8. Expansive cargo capacity and advanced availability, 4x4 capability, 284 horsepower, up to 6,000 pounds of towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer that call. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. More to come on Locked On Vols when we continue here on a Tuesday show. All right, welcome back into your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day, your first watch, wherever you get your podcast. We are readily available. Download it and enjoy it. Really, really do appreciate you everydayers. Everydayers mailbag questions coming up in segment number 3. Some news items here in segment number 2. Boy, did Tennessee basketball reel in some of those yearly honors from the Southeastern Conference, and it's expected. I mean, you're the SEC regular season champions. You're very much in the conversation. As of right now, you are on Joe Lunardi, at least, his 1 seed line. You're one of the best teams in the country. So it's no surprise that Tennessee's reeling in some of these awards from the SEC. Most notable, of course, and this is a no-brainer. It's not like there is any competition the last couple of weeks for this award. And it's the SEC Player of the Year. And that goes to Tennessee's Dalton Knecht. Coming over, of course, from the transfer portal, Northern Colorado. In SEC play, he averaged 25.5 points, and overall in the season, he's averaging 21.4 points this season. It's been phenomenal. Dalton Knecht, I mean, he's had 5 games of 35-plus points. He ended the regular season with a career-high 40 points against Kentucky. We know all about that. Dalton Knecht has been just phenomenal, and on the road, he's been truly special. see, 24.8 in true road games is what Dalton Knecht has been averaging on the season. He scored 25 or more points 10 times this year, 30 or more points 7 times, 35 or more points 5 times, 39 or more points 4 times, with 3 39-point games, and of course the 40-point game that I mentioned against Kentucky is how we ended the regular season. Just fantastic. 21.4 points overall, 4.8 rebounds per game, 1.8 assists, shooting 47.4% from the field, 40.5% from downtown. Again, no contest. He should very much be more in the conversation for National Player of the Year. Instead, they're going to give it to Edey because he was the reigning, the reigning Player of the Year from last year, and everybody just decided to go ahead and give that award to him in November. But nonetheless, Dalton Knecht should be very much more a part of that conversation. But it's not just Dalton Knecht. If you're a good basketball team like Tennessee is, it's not just one player. And Zakai Zeigler is another guy that reeled in a couple awards. We know about his ability to play the point guard position. Contrary to what some media personnel covering other teams in the Southeastern Conference may say, there's no such thing as irrelevant when you talk about Tennessee's point guard and Zakai Zeigler. We know all about Zakai Zeigler, and we also know that he is a pest defensively. Goodness gracious, is he a pest defensively. Zakai Zeigler, the Defensive Player of the Year in the Southeastern Conference. How about that? Defensive Player of the Year, and he, and along with Dalton Knecht, were named to the first team All-SEC team. So congratulations to Zakai Zeigler, who, man, it ended horribly last year. I guess that was his freshman season, or maybe that was a sophomore. Is he a junior now? Gosh, the years go by. I think he's a junior now. Nonetheless, against Arkansas, he tore his ACL in but late in the season last year, the last couple weeks. And, man, it was heartbreaking. It was truly heartbreaking, and over the summer, Rick Barnes was really, really careful with him, and in exhibition play was careful. In the first couple of weeks of the regular season, he was careful. And Zakai really came back to being Zakai, around the Christmas break and the first little bit of SEC play. He's been phenomenal this year, both offensively and, of course, defensively, and he's being recognized by the league as the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. And again, him and Dalton Knecht, first team All-SEC. Jonas Aidoo, who I think, as I talked about with Ryan Shumpert on yesterday's show, I think he's the X factor for Tennessee in order to make a deep NCAA tournament run. Jonas Aidoo has got to give you good play, and I'll get on that in a mailbag question here in segment number 3 in a moment. But man, Jonas Aidoo, breakout campaign here this year. Second team All-SEC for Jonas Aidoo. He's been fantastic. Junior season, averaging career highs in scoring at 12.1 points per game, rebounding 7.6 points per game, defensive rebounding 4.7, offensive rebounding 2.9, blocks. He's averaging nearly 2 blocks a game at 1.9. He's averaging nearly a steal a game, and he's playing 25.4 minutes per game. He was 4th in the SEC in rebounding and 3rd in the league in block shots. Jonas Aidoo's been fantastic, and I think he's got a great pro career ahead of him. I think he'll go through the NBA draft process, like the scouting process and all that, and get some feedback. And everybody that I talk to that cover the team thinks that he'll be back here next year once he gets that feedback, unless something happens. But man, Jonas Aidoo's been fantastic. Zeigler, some stats on him that I skipped over a moment ago. 11.6 points per game, 6 assists per game, which is phenomenal. 2.6 rebounds a game, 31 games this season. Led the SEC in assists with 185, was 3rd in assist to turnover ratio at 2.8, 4th in steals with 58, shooting 40.4% from the field, 35.3% from downtown. Those guys were incredible. So, Dalton Knecht, your SEC Player of the Year. Zakai Zeigler is your SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Dalton Knecht, Zakai Zeigler, first team SEC. Jonas Aidoo, second team SEC. All defensive teams, Zakai Zeigler and Jonas Aidoo as well. Jonas Aidoo, a part of that All-SEC defensive team as well. Congratulations to those guys on getting those awards. Well deserved. And you're going to need all those guys for Tennessee in order to make a deep tournament run. Not just Dalton Knecht, which, again, somebody asked me a question about that here in a moment, in a matter of minutes, and I'll talk about it when we get to the mailbag portion of the show. Going to need all these guys. And Tennessee certainly has the potential to be a team, to be the last team standing, but obviously to go further in the NCAA tournament than Tennessee has ever gone. Could this team reach the Final Four for the first time in program history? Could this team win a national championship for the first time in program history? Could this team get back to the Elite Eight for only the second time in program history? We will find out. The Sweet 16 for the third time under Rick Barnes. Tournament basketball is here. The SEC tournament starts this weekend, and then it's the NCAA tournament. Can't wait to see where Tennessee goes and what Tennessee does, and we'll cover it all right here on Locked On Vols. Congratulations to those Vols on bringing in some hardware. Hey, when we come back, we'll talk some Tennessee hoops, spring practice, football, recruiting, and some baseball as I answer your mailbag questions. That's coming up next as we continue on with a Tuesday Locked On Vols. I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset of a 1 seed or just betting on the 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, on money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Prop bets, so much more you can find at our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKED locked on, FanDuel.com/locked on to bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. All that and more with our friends over at FanDuel. Mailbag questions coming up next as we continue on with a Tuesday Locked On Vols. All right, we continue on with the Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols, and everydayers, this is your segment. Appreciate you guys sending me in your questions every single week. And without further ado, let's jump down into it. We'll start with a couple of YouTube questions submitted on the YouTube channel. This is from Backwoods, Tennessee. Says he's a logger. He listens to Locked On Vols when he's cutting timber. Hey, that is a man's job right there. Appreciate the support, man. And here's your question. Said, don't get me wrong, I love watching DK drop 35, 40 points on any given night, but I feel like this team, we are at our most dangerous when he has 23 to 30, and Aidoo and ZZ can give you 14 to 17. JJ and Santi can give you 10 or so. Just my opinion, but I feel like our best chance at a deep run is somewhat balanced scoring, and that the killer defense Barnes has a trademark while on Rocky Top. What are your thoughts? I agree with you 100%. I'm not saying that for Tennessee to win or for Tennessee to go to a Final Four that Dalton Knecht's got to score 40 points a game. Now, I think Tennessee, there could be a game in that mix where Dalton just goes off and you win that game, and you'll certainly take it. But for Tennessee to be so dangerous, you know, others have to help him. And again, it's not like you want Dalton to stop shooting and scoring and go off. If Dalton wants to score 35 or 40 points, go do it. But Santiago Vescovi and Josiah Jordan-James missed open shots. Josiah made a couple of threes against Kentucky, but Santi hadn't hit a field goal in 2 games. Just really struggling with confidence right now on the offensive end. It's hard to watch because he's made so many shots for Tennessee throughout his career. But yeah, I agree. If those other guys are stepping up and hitting some open shots, then Dalton's probably not going to have to go off and score 35 points a game. He'll come back down to maybe 20, 25, or whatever the case is. If maybe Santi can get you 13 one game, Josiah can get you 15. Well, this is wishful thinking. I understand that. Jonas can get you 12 and 8 or 12 and 9. Z can give you, 15 and 7. That would be fantastic. So I 100% agree with you that for Tennessee to make a deep run, those guys are going to have to help him for sure. But back to your original point, defense. As long as Tennessee plays lockdown defense, I have faith in Dalton Knecht or somebody else to find the bottom of the net. I do. And that's what's different about this team compared to years past, because you didn't have that. I mean, sure, Dalton Knecht is huge, don't get me wrong, but Jonas Aidoo's been phenomenal this year. Zakai Zeigler's been incredible this year. And I still know what Santi and JJJ can do because I've seen it before. I'm just not counting on it, if that makes sense. Again, appreciate the question, and you're doing some man's work out there. Appreciate you listening to Locked On Vols. Let's go to Louisiana Vol. Kaner, since you cover baseball, you probably would know this. What about the 7 new uniform combinations that the team's supposed to be getting next year per Vitello? What do you think the combinations are that they're going to go with? Any new ones? Yeah, Tennessee will get new uniform combinations next year. Tony mentioned that, I believe, on some podcast that was taped. Like, it came out right before opening day, and that's why all the buzz was there. But I believe he taped the podcast like a month before. But anyway, yeah, Tennessee's going to get a bunch of new uniforms next year. How many, what they look like, I don't know. But I would be willing to wager that they'll get, obviously, a new white uniform. I believe they'll have a new variation of the smoky grays. I know a lot of people don't like the pajamas that a lot of people call them, the smoky grays, but they will have a variation of the smoky grays for sure, in my opinion. They'll have another black jersey. I'm sure they'll bring the creams back. I don't know what the designs will look like. I don't know if they're going to be mix and match, but I do know that from everybody that I've talked to, they're going to look sweet. And I know Tony Vitello is excited about it, and he's ball coach. And so if he's excited about that type of stuff, I think there's a lot to be excited about. Now, I would love for them to do, the old Tennessee logo at some point in time, the musket. I would love to see a throwback of some sorts. But again, this isn't professional sports. You're not going to spend tons and tons and tons and tons of money making an alternate uniform, but I would love to see it. But that's kind of a sidebar there. Let's go on now. Let's go to Jared. He's got a basketball question. Looking back, was it inevitable that we were going to lose to Kentucky, given how well Kentucky shot from three, along with the emotions from senior night? It was an emotional game. Senior nights always are. But to your first point, I mean, Kentucky made 15 three-pointers, shot 50% or over 50% from the field in the first half, where Tennessee shot 25%. So, yeah, when you're playing at that level offensively, you're going to be a hard out. Again, I'll say it again, that Kentucky team, that's why everybody in the national media has been so goo-goo about Kentucky, because they're capable of that. If that Kentucky team plays more consistent, I mean, that's a deep tournament team right there. Tennessee could obviously still win, because it almost did, because of lockdown defense. Kentucky couldn't get it past the half-court line on 3 straight possessions. They gave Tennessee a chance to pull within 3 and have a shot to tie. But ultimately, it's going to be a hard out when you're going up against a team like that on a specific night. Baseball question. Given what you've seen so far, do you think we are currently ranked too high, too low, or as expected heading into SEC play? Yeah, I mean, if you are a VolQuest.com subscriber, you read my 3-2-1 from yesterday, and I like this team. I do. I love the offense of this team. I think that top to bottom, I put this lineup against anybody in the country. I think this team can rake. I love the starting pitching options, though they are still not finalized because A.J. Russell is working himself back. I like the options in the bullpen, though once we're beginning SEC play, this weekend in Alabama and so on and so forth, you'll start to see those defined roles more. And I have questions, but I do like the options. And I think Tennessee overall, I mean, errors happen. That's part of the game. But Tennessee overall, I believe, played really good defense this year, which has been much better than last year. So I do think, they came in at number 5 in the latest D1 baseball poll. A lot of teams around the country are playing tougher schedules than Tennessee, but also there's a lot of really good teams that have lost to mediocre competition. I mean, I'm not calling Duke mediocre competition. I think Duke's a solid baseball program, but, Duke took 2 of 3 against Wake this weekend at home. Wake was the number 1 team in the country. Florida's lost to a couple of teams that they shouldn't be losing to. Arkansas's lost to a couple of teams they shouldn't be losing to. So Tennessee ranked at number 5. I think that's about right. Yeah, and we'll learn more once Tennessee continues on in SEC play. Another question from Jared, another baseball question. What was your take on the Blake Burke ejection? Was the ump unreasonable given the circumstances with it being a big home run? Does Burke and everybody else need to stop chirping like the 2022 team? It looked like their catcher was whining and egging on the umpire. Yeah, I think Blake Burke was more collateral damage, that ejection from the other day. Now, he was running his mouth, apparently, coming back across home plate to the catcher, and so ultimately it is his fault. But the reason he got ejected was because both benches were already warned, okay? And there was some chirping going on, and it goes back to, Tennessee believing that, and I mean, I'll say it too, they were quick pitching Tennessee, and that's Bush League in my opinion. And Tony Vitello kind of mentioned that after the game in a very respectful tone. You got to watch, stop chirping. Tennessee doesn't need to flip anybody off rounding first base in a regional game this year. I mean, that was a bit extreme, but overall, I think Burke's ejection was more collateral damage because both benches were already worn. Let's go to Kurt. Did the blown defensive play that led to the game-winning 3 by South Carolina against the Lady Vols finally put the nail in Kelly Harper's tenure as Lady Vols coach? Do you think it's finally time they go outside the Summit tree and get an outside hire to breathe new life into the program? I don't know. I'm not going to act like I'm an insider on Lady Vols stuff. I've spoke with some people, and they have told me they think Kelly Harper, this was a week ago, will be back next year. But again, I'm not the insider to ask on that situation. But nonetheless, what happened at the end of the South Carolina game was inexcusable. And when and if there is a change made, the next head coach for the Lady Vols, whenever that is, 100% there should be consideration for people outside the Summit tree. Absolutely. Find the best coach for the job. And it doesn't have to be from within the family, for sure. I would be 100% A-okay with them hiring somebody that, is a graduate of some other school. Just hire the best coach when that time comes, if you need to. We got 2 more questions I want to get into, and then we will call our quits right here. We're going to work through it fast. This is from Braden. Braden has asked some really good questions the last couple of weeks. I can tell he takes pride in this segment. Braden, I appreciate it. If you could take one player in the entire NCAA and put them on Tennessee's football team this year, who would it be? Will we ever see a larger-than-life character in college football like Johnny Manziel? Secondly, at some point, yes. At some point, I do believe yes, because, again, there's new players come in, there's good football. But Johnny was larger than life. So was Tim Tebow. So was some other players in recent history as well. But Johnny was pretty phenomenal. So I'll say at some point, absolutely. To answer your first question, I went through and made some notes. I think Nico's going to be a stud, so I'm fine with him at quarterback. I'm looking at needs on the roster and who I would go get around college football to add to this team. Caleb Downs, who just left Alabama to go to Ohio State, that safety, I think he's one to consider. Harold Perkins, linebacker from LSU, is one I like. Travis Hunter, who's probably my answer at Colorado, an absolute stud, can play wide receiver, defensive back. He's a lockdown corner. I'll probably go Travis Hunter, but Caleb Downs and Harold Perkins would certainly be in consideration. And then finally, we'll end with Trevor. How does recruiting rankings work? How does On3 and other recruiting companies rank players from all over the country, and what goes into players' number of stars? That's a great question. I am not one that does that, so technically I don't know. I do know that Charles Power and other evaluators and scouts and director of rankings and all that, they sit through and they watch tape all the time. They watch game tapes. They watch huddle tapes. They go to camps. They go to showcases and see these guys in person. And it's not just somebody that just says, oh, this guy, let's throw up 3 stars. Let's put up a 4-star. I mean, there's a lot of time and effort and manpower that goes into ranking high school prospects. But in my opinion, it's an impossible task because there's so many. And you can't see them all enough to really have a true understanding of everybody. I mean, there's going to be misses, and that's fine. But I know that's a lot of film work. It's a ton of film work. It's collaboration with some guys that work together to do this, and getting out and seeing these guys in person at showcases is the biggest thing. And also, that's why you see a guy that might be ranked a 3 or a low 4-star, but hadn't camped an awful lot. Go to camps, go to showcases. They haven't been seen enough. Trevor, appreciate the question. That is going to do it for this edition of your Locked On Vols Tuesday edition. Appreciate you guys for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Can't thank you everydayers enough for being a part of the show. We'll be back at it. We'll continue to preview Tennessee spring practice. We'll talk with Josh Ward and a whole lot more. That's coming up on tomorrow's show, Wednesday, Locked On Vols. Until then, stay safe, everybody. This is Locked On Vols.